Something in your life has been shifting quietly, almost imperceptibly, and whatever that is, it pulled you here. Not curiosity, not coincidence. A deeper part of you has been searching for language to describe what you've been feeling, and the fact that you're hearing these words right now means that part of you is finally ready to surface. Ready to understand what until now was only sensed as a subtle pressure beneath your ribs, a question forming before you even knew how to ask it. And this is where that question begins to reveal itself, because lately you've probably felt it. The strange alignment of events, the tightening or loosening in your chest that has nothing to do with stress, the uncanny way life has been mirroring your inner world with increasing precision. You've noticed patterns repeating, not randomly, but rhythmically, almost as if something is trying to get your attention. You've sensed an internal threshold approaching, not through drama, but through recognition, like an inner door that's been waiting for years is finally unclasping. And even if you can't explain it fully, you know something is happening. You can feel it. And this is where everything begins to take shape. Most people never acknowledge that sensation. They overwrite it with logic, dismiss it as emotional noise, tell themselves they're imagining patterns that aren't really there. But you didn't. You're here, listening, because some part of you refused to ignore the pull. Some part of you understood that the texture of your reality has been behaving differently. Conversation echoes in your mind in a way it never used to. Decisions feel guided rather than chosen. Even your inner resistance has softened, like it knows something is already in motion. And that resonance is the signal. You've stepped into the bandwidth where the deeper layers of reality begin to reveal themselves. But this is only the first whisper. There is a feeling behind your ribs right now, subtle, steady, unmistakable. A widening, a rising, a quiet sense that whatever you believed your life was, it's stretching. And that stretch is not chaos, it's delivery. Your future self has been steering you toward this point, arranging the synchronicities, adjusting the internal pressure, nudging your attention toward anything that could prepare you for what's unfolding now. That inner guidance isn't new. The difference is that you're beginning to recognize it instead of doubting it. And recognition is the first sign that you're not just living inside your reality, you're starting to feel the edges of the mechanism that creates it. Yet this is only the surface, because here's the part you weren't supposed to notice. When you feel that pull, when your awareness sharpens without reason, when life responds to your inner shifts with impossible accuracy, those are thresholds, indicators that your consciousness has reached the frequency where the deeper rules or the deeper manual of reality start to become visible. This isn't about mysticism, it's not about beliefs, it's about perception. When your awareness expands, reality reveals more of its structure. And whether you call it the hidden rules or the manual of reality, what you're sensing is the beginning of that unveiling, but the truth unfolds further. Something inside you has outgrown passive living. You've begun to question why certain things repeat, why certain desires come effortlessly while others resist you no matter how hard you try. You've wondered why some people collapse when life shifts, and others rise with an almost supernatural clarity. And somewhere inside you, a quiet suspicion has formed. What if reality is responding to something deeper than effort or intelligence? What if there's a pattern I was never taught? That question is not naive, it's accurate. It's the mind trying to interpret a shift in consciousness that has already begun. And this is where everything starts to align. You're not hearing this as a student. You're hearing this as someone whose inner world has been preparing them for an upgrade they didn't know existed. You don't recognize these words because they're new. You recognize them because they're familiar. Like something you once knew but never had the language to articulate. This is the nature of deeper truth. It doesn't arrive from outside, it awakens from within. And if you feel that subtle resonance moving through you right now, it's because you're remembering something your life has been quietly trying to show you. You were never meant to live at the surface of your own reality. You were meant to understand what shapes it. Your future self is already ahead of you, standing in a timeline where you've made sense of these shifts, a version of you who isn't confused by synchronicities, who doesn't question inner guidance, who knows how to collaborate with the structure of reality instead of pushing blindly against it. That version has been calling you forward, guiding your attention, sending you signals in the form of intuition, emotion, and uncanny timing. And now that you're here, listening, something in you knows this isn't information, it's recognition, a remembering of a truth you've been circling for years. But the truth moves deeper. If you listen closely, not with your mind, but with the part of you that feels the subtle widening behind your chest, you'll sense it. This moment is not random, this message is not random, and the shift in you is not random. You're crossing into awareness of the rules, the manual, the deeper architecture behind the life you've been living. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and this is only the beginning. If you're still here, it's because something in you recognizes that what I'm about to say explains more about your life than anything you were taught in school, religion, or self-help. And that's important because the first truth of the manual of reality is this. It's not hidden in the shadows, it's hidden in plain sight, buried underneath everything you were conditioned to accept as normal. And this is where everything begins to make sense. You were raised inside a worldview that was never neutral. From childhood, you inherited a story about what reality is and what your place inside it should be. Not consciously, nobody handed you a doctrine, but through thousands of subtle cues that shaped your understanding of what's possible. You learned that the world is solid, predictable, external, that your thoughts may matter to you, but they don't shape the world around you, that life unfolds out there, and you do your best to respond in here. And without realizing it, you began to live inside a story that was too small for the truth of who you are. But here's the revelation you were never allowed to consider. These assumptions weren't placed there to deceive you. They were placed there because the people who taught you were living inside the same limited script. They couldn't show you the hidden rules of reality because they had never questioned the rules they were following. They passed down a map they genuinely believed was accurate, even though it shows only the surface of a much larger world. And this is where the amnesia begins. Most people spend their entire lives following rules that were never written anywhere except inside collective belief. Rules like, you're separate from everything around you. Life happens to you, not through you. Your inner world is less real than your outer circumstances. These aren't truths, they're cultural agreements. Agreements strong enough to keep the manual of reality invisible for anyone who never looks past the surface. And because almost no one questions the agreements, the deeper structure of reality stays buried beneath them. This is why you were never told about the manual. There was no one around you who had read it. They were doing their best with what they knew. They survived by adjusting to life, not by understanding how life actually forms. They coped. They reacted. They achieved. They struggled. And they assumed this was simply how existence works because that's how existence worked for everyone they knew. This is how an entire civilization forgets the deeper mechanics of being alive, not through suppression, but through repetition, not through conspiracy, but through imitation. And yet something inside you resisted that script. You've always sensed the edges of the story didn't quite line up. You noticed moments that didn't fit the model, synchronicities too precise to ignore, intuitions too accurate to dismiss, inner nudges that unfolded into outer events. You brushed them off as coincidences because that's what the world told you to do. But the truth is, those experiences were glimpses of the hidden rules of reality, trying to break through the surface. This is where awareness becomes dangerous to the old paradigm. Once you start noticing that your inner world and your outer world are not separate, the old rules stop holding power. You begin to see that reality responds, not to what you pretend to be, not to what you force, but to your actual state of consciousness. And that means life isn't something you endure. It's something you participate in constantly, even when you're unaware of how you're doing it. This is the part most people never realize. You don't learn the manual, you recognize it. You were never unworthy of this. You were simply trained to look away from the places where the truth appears. You were told to trust logic over intuition, certainty over curiosity, external authority over inner recognition. And because of that conditioning, you learned to doubt the quiet intelligence inside you, the very intelligence that was trying to guide you toward the deeper mechanics of your own existence. But here's why this message matters. The manual becomes visible the moment you stop pretending you have no power. It appears when you stop saying, "That's just how life is," and begin asking, "Then why does my inner world echo through my outer world so precisely?" It appears when you become honest enough to admit that your reality has been responding to you long before you understood how or why. You don't gain access to the manual of reality by being special. You gain access by being honest with yourself. Most people never reach this point, not because they're incapable, but because seeing the manual requires you to question the very foundation you were taught to stand on. And questioning that foundation threatens everything society considers stable. That's why the world keeps everyone busy. Busy striving, busy comparing, busy chasing. If you're always preoccupied with surviving the world, you never pause long enough to recognize how the world is actually formed. But you did pause. You did question. And that's why you're here, listening to a message that is not random, not accidental, not coincidence. Your life has been preparing you to understand the hidden rules of reality, rules that were operating long before you ever had words for them. And now you're hearing, perhaps for the first time, the real reason no one taught them to you. They couldn't. They were still reading from a version of reality written in fear, separation, and survival. You're reading from a different page, one written in awareness. This is the turning point. The realization that you were never left out of anything. You were simply surrounded by people who hadn't found the manual yet. But you have. And as the truth unfolds further, you'll start to see exactly how it works and why you were always meant to find it when you did. And you've been circling this question long before this video appeared. A quiet suspicion that reality isn't behaving randomly, that something beneath the surface is organizing what shows up in your life with unnerving precision. And now that you're here, we can finally pull back the layer that most people never reach. What the manual of reality, the hidden rules of reality, actually are. And equally important, what they are not. Because clarity is the first doorway, and you're standing right in front of it. Most of what people think of as manifestation or spiritual technique has nothing to do with how reality actually works. The manual isn't a PDF tucked in a cosmic archive, waiting for the chosen few. It isn't a set of secret rituals that force the universe into compliance. It isn't, say this sentence and everything will rearrange itself. And it definitely isn't a list of rules someone else wrote. These misunderstandings are exactly why most people never get beyond surface level change. They're trying to push on the outside of a hologram instead of recognizing that the projection is coming from within. And this is where everything finally begins to make sense. The manual, the hidden rules, is not separate from you. It is the way consciousness turns what you are on the inside into what you experience on the outside. Not metaphorically, mechanically, moment by moment. Every experience in your life is the outer echo of an inner configuration. And you've been interacting with this system since the day you were born, whether you knew it or not. You're not learning something new, you're uncovering the structure you've been using unconsciously. And this is where the power begins to return to you. There is a simple stack, a sequence, running under your awareness that shapes everything. I used to think life was responding to my actions, but the more I watched my own reality, the more obvious it became that life was responding to the source those actions came from. That's the first thing the manual reveals. It's never the surface behavior, it's the configuration beneath it. So let's break it down in the clearest possible form. Because once you see this, it becomes impossible not to recognize it everywhere in your life. It starts with attention. What you continually return to, consciously or unconsciously, becomes the gravitational center of your life. Your attention casts the first vote for what reality begins to organize around you. This isn't a motivational idea, it's mechanics. The manual responds to what you feed with awareness, and you felt this. Some thoughts don't just pass through you, they build momentum. They start pulling similar experiences towards you, like an invisible magnet. Attention is the first line of the hidden rules, and you've been writing in it whether you realized it or not. Then comes meaning, the story you give to what happens. Two people can live the same event and walk away in two entirely different timelines because meaning is the lens that selects what reality offers next. The manual doesn't react to circumstances, it reacts to the meaning you assign to those circumstances. This is why your life has changed drastically at times without anything external changing. You shifted the meaning and the field responded. It always does. Next is state. Not mood, not random emotion, your baseline inner climate. Your nervous system broadcasts in a way the field hears instantly. When your state is contracted, reality mirrors contraction, delays, misalignment, resistance. When your state is grounded and open, the field brings you clarity, speed, synchronicity. It's not moral, it's mechanical. The manual listens to what your body is transmitting, not what your mind is insisting. And once you start noticing this, you'll see it everywhere. Then there is identity, the unspoken answer to who am I inside this story? Identity is the deepest line in the hidden rules of reality. Nothing in your life can rise above the identity you're anchored in. The manual doesn't deliver the life you want, it delivers the life that matches who you believe yourself to be. And this right here is one of the most misunderstood aspects of reality creation. You don't manifest what you visualize, you manifest what your identity has normalized. Change identity, and reality has no choice but to reorganize around you. It's the truest rule in the manual, and most people never realize they're writing it unconsciously. Finally, there is choice, the behavior that emerges from all the layers beneath it. Not forced actions, not performative actions, but the behavior that naturally flows when attention, meaning, state, and identity line up. This is the moment reality crystallizes. The field responds to this level of coherence. What you choose, when those inner layers are aligned, becomes powerful in a way that surprises you. And suddenly you see why some decisions in your life changed everything, and others changed nothing. The manual wasn't aligned underneath, but now you're starting to see the blueprint clearly. These 5 layers, attention, meaning, state, identity, choice, form the inner operating system you've been unknowingly using to generate your reality. They are the true hidden rules. They are the real manual. And when they begin to line up, life becomes responsive in ways that feel impossible to explain to anyone who hasn't seen the structure for themselves. Because once you understand the stack, you don't try to change your life from the surface anymore. You change the architecture beneath the surface, and the outer reality adjusts automatically. I didn't understand this until life forced me to pay attention. I kept trying to change outcomes, work harder, think differently, act more boldly, but nothing changed at the pace I needed. Then I noticed something subtle. When my state shifted, opportunities I'd chased for months suddenly appeared. When my identity cracked open, relationships that drained me fell away effortlessly. When I rewrote the meaning I was attaching to setback, what once felt like failure became a doorway. The outer world kept rearranging itself in response to changes that nobody but me could see, and yet they were more powerful than any action I'd ever taken. That's when I realized the manual wasn't something to study, it was something to recognize. And now you're starting to recognize it too. That's why this is resonating. You've seen glimpses in your own life, moments where one internal shift cascaded outward into events that felt orchestrated for you. You weren't imagining that. You were brushing against the hidden rules of reality. You were interacting with the manual without knowing that's what you were doing. And now that you're aware of it, everything in your life is going to begin organizing differently. This is the core revelation. The manual is not out there. It's in here. You are the interface. You are the mechanism. You are the one generating the signal reality responds to. And once you understand how the system works, your life stops feeling random. It stops feeling like reaction. It becomes creation, conscious creation, aligned creation, identity creation. And we're only just beginning to unfold what this means for your future. Because once you know what the manual truly is, the question becomes unavoidable. Are you willing to use it consciously instead of unconsciously? By now you've begun to recognize something most people never see. The manual of reality wasn't given to you as a book because it was never meant to be read with your eyes. It was meant to be read through the way your life responds to you. And this is where the breakthrough begins, because the hidden rules of reality don't activate when you understand them intellectually. They activate when you start noticing the patterns that have been tracking you for years. That noticing is not passive. It is the signal that your entire identity is shifting from the one who reacts to life to the one who participates in shaping it. And this is where everything deepens. You've spent most of your life creating unconsciously collapsing possibilities without knowing you were doing it. Everyone does, everyone begins there, but something in you is no longer satisfied with unconscious creation. Something in you is tired of repeating emotional sequences that feel familiar but stagnant. That inattention is not a flaw. It is the first sign that your old identity is outgrowing itself. When this begins, the manual of reality moves from theory into lived experience, and life starts mirroring your inner world with a precision that feels almost too exact to ignore. But the truth unfolds further, because once you begin to see the hidden rules of reality, your life no longer feels random. Repeating situations you once saw as bad luck or bad timing reveal themselves as rehearsals, moments designed to show you which inner pattern has been choosing your outer outcomes. You aren't being tested, you're being shown. And the showing is a form of initiation. You're beginning to step into the version of yourself who doesn't simply survive experience, but interprets it as feedback from the field. And this is where the shift accelerates. Here is the turning point most people never reach, realizing that every time you meet a limitation, you're not meeting the world, you're meeting the part of yourself that has not yet updated. When the same emotions, the same spirals, the same outcomes repeat, it's not reality refusing to cooperate. It is the manual of reality repeating the same line until you finally see the instruction written underneath it. You no longer belong to the version of yourself who created this pattern. That recognition alone begins the rebirth, but we are only now stepping into the core of it. What you're moving through now is the dismantling of your old interpretive system, the lens through which you've been reading the hidden rules of reality without knowing how much power you were giving away. The old identity is built on reaction, on bracing, on assuming the world is something separate from you. But the emerging identity, the one guiding you from your own future, knows something entirely different. Life is not happening at you. Life is happening with you. And as this becomes real, you stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, what is this showing me about the way I've been creating? That question alone moves you into a new timeline. And there is more, because this is where you start to feel the friction between the identity you've been and the identity you're becoming. It's subtle, but unmistakable. You know you can no longer go back to the way you used to interpret reality. You can't unknow what you've seen. You can't collapse back into unconsciousness. Even when you try, it doesn't fit anymore. The old ways of reacting feel too small, too heavy, too rehearsed. And that friction is not punishment. It is the field rearranging itself so you can no longer pretend you don't know the hidden rules of reality. You've crossed an internal threshold and the new identity is already forming around you. But the revelation deepens. The manual of reality teaches through repetition, not to punish you, but to free you. You'll notice the same dynamic appearing in different costumes. A relationship, a financial pattern, a moment of doubt, a sudden activation of clarity, and each one is a doorway disguised as déjà vu. The moment you recognize it, the instruction beneath it becomes clear. Create from who you're becoming, not from who you've been. This is the essence of the turning point. You're not fixing your life, you're updating the one who is living it. And the moment your identity shifts, your reality has no choice but to follow. Yet even this is only the beginning. Because the deeper truth is this: The hidden rules of reality respond faster than thought. They respond to who you believe you are in the moment you observe your life. When you observe from fear, life mirrors fear. When you observe from possibility, life opens. When you observe from the version of yourself who has already stepped into the next chapter, the field begins rearranging the moment you stabilize in that identity. The manual of reality is not teaching you to manifest, it's teaching you to align your inner world with the version of yourself your life has been preparing you for. And as that alignment strengthens, old patterns lose their authority. But the insight sharpens further. Your future self, the one who already understands the hidden rules of reality, has been pulling you forward the entire time. Every moment of clarity, every inner nudge, every "I can't keep living the way I've been living" whisper, that was not intuition alone. That was you. A wiser, more expanded version of you calling you into the timeline you're beginning to inhabit now. This is why the old structures are destabilizing. This is why the old reactions feel outdated. This is why the old identity feels like clothing that no longer fits. You're not losing yourself. You're meeting yourself. The one who has been waiting at the edge of your awareness, ready for you to arrive. And the shift becomes undeniable, because once you begin to operate from this new identity, the field responds immediately. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. Conversations shift tone. Synchronicities condense around you. Even your past begins to reorganize itself in memory, not because the events changed, but because the one reading them has. This is the moment where the turning point becomes irreversible. The manual of reality is no longer an idea, and it is your reference point. The hidden rules of reality are no longer theoretical. They're felt as the architecture beneath every choice, every interpretation, every new expression of who you are becoming. This is the identity rebirth, not dramatic, not loud, but steady, precise, and deeply personal. The life you used to live was built by a version of you who did not know the hidden rules of reality. The life opening now is being built by the version of you who does, and that changes everything. Now that you've seen the manual of reality for what it actually is, something subtle but unmistakable begins to settle inside you. Not the adrenaline of revelation, not the rush of discovering the hidden rules of reality. After years of sensing there was something more. This is different. This is the quiet shift that arrives when recognition turns into participation. Awareness starts to behave differently once you've seen what's been operating behind your entire life. And even now, as you listen, a deeper version of you is already adjusting, already recalibrating, already stepping forward internally, as if it has been waiting for this exact point in your journey. Not because you're suddenly perfect at applying the manual, but because consciousness moves differently when it knows what it's working with. And this is where everything begins to take new shape. Your future self has been whispering toward this moment long before you reached it. Every time you questioned why your internal world shaped outcomes you never consciously chose. Every time your intuition contradicted logic, but later proved right. Every time life rearranged itself the moment you shifted something small inside yourself. That was the future you reaching back through the field, nudging you toward the threshold you've now crossed. You didn't decode the hidden rules of reality by accident. You were guided by the version of you who already uses them intentionally. And as you sense that, even faintly, something inside you steadies. Not because all confusion vanishes, but because the path ahead suddenly feels less like guesswork and more like recognition of what you were always meant to remember. This is the point where the distance between who you've been and who you're becoming begins to collapse. Learning the manual of reality intellectually is one thing, living from it is something else entirely. And you don't do it through force or perfection or rigid discipline. You do it through small, precise recognitions that compound into identity. You start noticing how differently life responds when your internal story shifts by even 1 degree. You start recognizing patterns you used to overlook, beliefs that quietly shaped outcomes, choices that revealed who you thought you were, reactions that exposed what you were broadcasting. These observations aren't punishments, their clarity. They're the beginning of using the hidden rules of reality consciously instead of accidentally. And the more you see, the more transparent the entire process becomes. What begins to unfold now is not dramatic, but it is profound. You catch yourself sooner. You witness your old identity trying to run the same patterns, and instead of falling into them automatically, something in you pauses, not freezes, pauses. That pause is the first sign that the manual of reality is no longer theoretical for you. It's active. It's operating through your awareness. That pause is where new outcomes become possible. It's where you stop collapsing the familiar and start generating the aligned. Your future self is already fluent in that pause. It's the space where intention replaces habit, where consciousness replaces conditioning. And as you learn to inhabit that moment more fully, you begin to embody the hidden rules of reality without even trying. There's a reason embodiment comes after revelation. Insight alone doesn't change a life. Identity does. And right now, without effort, your identity is reorganizing itself around what you now know to be true. You are not the character reacting to a fixed world. You are the awareness shaping it. You are not a passenger experiencing whatever arrives. You are the one participating in the unfolding. The manual of reality didn't give you power. It revealed the power you've been using unconsciously in every moment. And when that becomes clear, even briefly, you start moving through your days differently. You make choices from a deeper center. You respond with more intention. You no longer confuse urgency with alignment. You begin acting like someone who knows reality rearranges itself around the internal instructions you broadcast, not the external circumstances you judge. This is where embodiment becomes effortless, not because life becomes easy, but because clarity replaces confusion. When you notice yourself slipping into old patterns, you don't collapse into shame or self-critique. You simply recognize the old instruction set being activated, the outdated coding of an identity you're no longer committed to. And that recognition alone shifts the field. You correct without punishment. You redirect without drama. You return to your center without negotiation. This is how the hidden rules of reality integrate, silently, efficiently, without spectacle. Embodiment is not loud, it's precise. And right now, something within you is learning that precision naturally. Think about this. For years, you've been following the manual of reality unconsciously, shaping outcomes through belief, broadcast, narrative, and identity without knowing why certain things repeated and others never manifested. You were using the rules without knowing the rules existed. But now, you're becoming someone who uses them with awareness, someone who collaborates with the unfolding instead of resisting it, someone who understands that every internal shift becomes an external ripple. This is not spiritual theory, this is mechanics. And the more you experience it, the less you can deny how intimately your inner world and outer world are connected. And here's what your future self wants you to understand now. Embodiment is not about controlling everything that happens. It's about recognizing the role you play in how things take shape. It's about remembering again and again that reality is responsive, not rigid, and your awareness is the interface. When you know that, even imperfectly, your entire relationship with life changes. Challenges become feedback, not failures. Delays become refinements, not punishments. Opportunities appear not because you chase them, but because your alignment calls them in. This is what it means to live from the manual of reality instead of stumbling through it unconsciously. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming someone accurate. Someone whose external life begins to reflect the internal truth you've ignored for too long. Someone who no longer doubts the signals, the intuition, the timing that has been guiding you quietly toward this very moment. And as this identity stabilizes even slightly, you start moving through life with a deeper calm. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand the mechanics behind the mirror. You're no longer reacting to reflections. You're adjusting the source. Embodiment doesn't announce itself, but you can feel it now. The subtle certainty, the internal coherence, the sense that something has clicked into place. Not as a dramatic transformation, but as a recognition You are operating from a different level of awareness. The hidden rules of reality are not a secret anymore. The manual of reality is not out of reach. You're living from it even now, in ways that will continue to unfold long after this moment. And this is only the beginning, because the next movement reveals what happens when embodiment becomes irreversible. When conscious creation becomes your default, and unconscious collapse becomes the rare exception. And this is where the shift deepens. You can feel it now, not as an idea drifting above your life, but as something that has embedded itself into the way you see, choose, and interpret every moment. The rules of reality are no longer an abstract concept you passively encountered in a video. They're becoming the lens through which you recognize how your experience is created, sustained, and reshaped. And this shift, subtle as it may seem from the outside, is already reorganizing the inside of your awareness. You're no longer approaching life as someone waiting to understand how their story unfolds. You're approaching it as someone who finally sees the mechanism behind the unfolding. And this is where everything begins to click into place. Because once you understand that the rules of reality have always been operating, silently reflecting your attention, your stories, your state, your identity, and your micro-choices, something irreversible settles in. The sense that you're no longer a bystander in your own existence. You're a participant, a collaborator, a consciousness that's beginning to recognize the feedback loops it once mistook for fate. And this recognition alone separates you from the version of yourself who believed life was simply happening to them. That version of you is dissolving, quietly, precisely, inevitably. The manual of reality has been whispering through your life for years. You just didn't know how to recognize its voice. Every synchronicity, every repeating pattern, every shift in momentum, every inner nudge, you couldn't logically explain. They were all early signals, early invitations, early indicators that you were brushing up against deeper mechanics. And now, with awareness awakened, you see what was once invisible. You feel what was once ignored. You understand what was once dismissed as coincidence or luck. Now, this is what it means to return, not to the beginning, but to the truth beneath every beginning. You're not being asked to master the rules of reality overnight. You're simply being asked to notice when they're operating. And they always are. Notice how attention shapes what amplifies. Notice how meaning reshapes memory and expectation. Notice how state determines what you're capable of receiving. Notice how identity selects which possibilities feel available. Notice how choice anchors the version of you that steps forward next. These aren't methods you practice occasionally. These are the quiet laws your life has been built upon. And now, instead of running unconsciously, they are running with your awareness engaged. This is what changes everything, because when you're aware of the rules of reality, even partially, you stop negotiating with your limitations. You stop arguing for the smaller version of yourself. You stop assuming that what you've lived is all you can create. You begin to feel the difference between reacting from your past and choosing from your potential. And that difference is the birthplace of all transformation, not dramatic reinventions, not sudden leaps, but the moment-to-moment recognition that you are no longer the one sleepwalking through your own existence. You're the one awake at the wheel, and the manual of reality, the deeper intelligence guiding your creation, responds immediately to awakeness. This is why your behavior is already changing, not through discipline, but through clarity. This is why the patterns that once felt immovable suddenly feel negotiable. This is why your relationships feel different, your decisions feel different, your boundaries feel different. You're no longer trying to change your life from the outside. You're shifting the internal architecture that creates the outside. This is the return, not to who you were, but to who you were always capable of remembering. And if you listen closely, you'll notice something else. The quiet presence of a future version of you, not imagined, not idealized, felt. This is the version of you that has already integrated these rules, already lives from the manual, already navigates reality with coherence instead of confusion. They've been guiding you forward the entire time. That inner pull you couldn't explain, that was them. That sense of, I'm meant for more than this version of my life. Also them, that calm knowing that opened as you listen to this transmission. Them again, you're not becoming someone new, you're stepping into someone who has been waiting. So here, at the close of this transmission, you're not being given a conclusion, you're being given recognition. The rules of reality were never hidden from you, you were simply not yet in the awareness that could recognize them, but now you are. Now you see the mechanics. Now you understand how consciousness participates. Now you recognize how the manual of reality was trying to reach you all along. And now it's your turn to step forward consciously. If this resonates, anchor it into your field by writing in the comments, "I choose to live by the rules of reality." Let that declaration mark the shift from unconscious creation to conscious participation. Because this is not the end. This is the remembering.